Hey guys, it's Alexander, and I just wanted to do a quick take video here to talk a little bit about something that my friend brought up to me. Over the last day or so, he's been talking to me and asking me questions about LLVM and its creator, Chris Lattner. And near as I can tell, he seems to sort of look up to the guy. My friend here is a very aspirational programmer. He's working pretty hard to study and all of that, and I'm something of a resource / sanity check for his opinion forming process as he learns about informatics. And he was asking me about LLVM and what I thought, asking me about Lattner. He says, well, I think he's more interesting than the project himself. And, it got me thinking a little bit, there's a really important thing that's going on here that I think you guys need to know about. One of the biggest problems of social cohesion that's staring down young people right now is the inability for Gen Xers, like Lattner, for example, to see how that the world that they came up in is no longer functioning for the people that are coming after them. Things used to make sense, as in, you could do things and have goodwill and people would treat you accordingly for what you were worth. And that sort of thing has been crumbling away since 2001, and it's disappeared almost entirely since 2020. You can imagine why. And we keep running into this problem over and over where older people will just tell us to just do X, just get a job, just go to school, just do this, just do that, as if any of these things are an option anymore, as if these things still make sense to do because they made sense when they were doing them. They don't care to see that all of the other, they don't care to see that all of their successes are presently impossible and their wealth that they have is presently unobtainable because the world is shifting away from peace and shifting into war. And this is why I'm always out of order with the academy that supposedly represents my field. It's filled with Gen Xers and some Millenials who obtained admission and are still treated with dignity because they got notoriety before the door was shut on all of us. But, even then, the Millennial generation is, you can kind of already see with them, you can already see the whole thing's kind of falling apart, like case in point with George Hotz and Justine Tunney. It's really not quite on balance. And anyone doing the equivalent of what Chris Lattner was doing is getting royally shit-fucked today. You got to remember, just put this in perspective, he was writing BASIC in high school. I'm far more innately gifted than that, and I'm not going anywhere, and I think that you guys can very well imagine how much more screwed that your average Python programmer or JavaScript aficionado is today. They're definitely not getting a job. But, that's because there's only really three things to do in this world right now. You either are stealing, or you're doing nothing and getting stolen from, or you're fighting the people who are stealing, And the thing you got to understand is that people like Chris Lattner are in the second group who are doing nothing, while people like Peter Thiel are in the first group, they're stealing. Lattner doesn't know it, but he is a load-bearing patsy for the mob to maintain social cohesion while they do their scams. That's why they bankrolled him to make an AI company. His ascent and unwitting complicity is vitally important to keeping the whole thing credible because he's a noteworthy person in the industry. His opinion matters, in other words. When, say, politicians, world leaders, and bankers and stakeholders want to check their homework and say, you're not bullshitting us, are you? You're not scamming us. And they're like, oh, no. Chris Lattner's on board, We've got Chris Lattner, we've got all the other programming language creators. Like, they want to acquire and keep lots and lots of credible scientists because they're going along with it maintains the credibility of the operation. It's legitimate because here's a guy who makes legitimate things and he says it's legitimate, but he's not really saying it's legitimate. They're saying that by association. And that's the key. And as long as Gen X continues to be struggling to realize the nature of what this is going on, younger people are going to continue to stall out and not get anywhere and not be able to break the mold. And we're going to just keep having this dissonance here, this non-conversation where the two parties, the parents and the children, are kind of just talking past each other forever and ever. And the center of that is not going to hold because the money for it is drying up. I think within the next couple years, we're going to get to a point where the Gen Xers are no longer going to have any money to continue entertaining whatever, non-conversation that they've been having with their children and successors. It's going to get harder to keep not addressing this, basically. And this is a really good example that I could give you guys that's in my industry of here's how the grift works. Here's how you make it look legitimate. And you can see the difference in where he came from and where he's at now. He's currently the co-founder and CEO of Modular AI, a company building an artificial intelligence developer platform. Lattner started programming in high school with BASIC. He learned machine language programming with Pascal and assembly. Then he went to the University of Portland and got a computer science bachelor's. And he got a job while studying. These were the before times. This is, like I said, these are when things made sense. This is when people like me would have been able to get a job. But that's not anymore. They have enough of these people. And so as long as people like Chris Lattner, for them, as long as people like him feel like everything is normal, this stuff can continue to go ahead as planned. And never mind, what's happening all around us because, well, those people don't count and we can just ignore them. Or if they get too noisy, we can just gaslight them and, turn it around and say, here's how it's your own fault. You just didn't do X. You didn't study hard enough. It's your fault. Don't forget the basic point of comparison. Where did somebody like Chris Lattner come from? Because here's your proof that you're being bullshitted, that you're effectively being robbed and gaslit. And gaslighting is a classic tactic that thieves do whenever they get caught. We've all been to high school. If you grew up in a particularly seedy high school, if you were from a low-income community, you know exactly how this works. Bro steals your hoodie, and you catch him in the act. You know it's your hoodie. What are you going to do? You're going to say, hey, that's my hoodie. Give it back. And he's going to say, it's not your hoodie. What are you talking about? It's not your hoodie. My friend gave me this. I found this in the locker room that you weren't at. They're going to gaslight you. And that's exactly the same thing that's happening here. Telling you that you're not good enough while they conspire and fail spectacularly to replace you with artificial intelligence and do all of this other antisocial stuff, all the while telling you that it's all your fault. You're just being stolen from. And people like Chris Lattner are having that reality of what's happening obscured from them so that their credibility can be passively lent to the whole operation. That's what's going on. So yeah, that's my quick take. As always, thanks for watching. And as always, thanks for watching.